Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a region that's literally been a geographic and cultural crossroads for millennia, the territory inside the modern borders of Pakistan. We are talking about an epic timeline here, one that begins between 73,000 and 55,000 years ago when modern humans first arrived. It's a space that has witnessed sweeping civilizations, massive wars, shifting religions, and intense reforms. We're going to unpack this layered tapestry today and see exactly how it all came together. To make sense of all these thousands of years of dense history, we've broken it down into 6 digestible eras. The early Indus Valley, conquerors at the crossroads, the spread of Islam, the Mughal Golden Age, British rule and partition, and finally, the modern republic. Let's get to it.
Starting with Section 1, the early Indus Valley, spanning from 7000 BC to 2000 BC.
You know, the climate and geography here perfectly set the stage for some of the earliest human developments. Just look at the sheer scale of this timeline. Modern humans arrive, and then, around 7000 BC, we see settled farming, people actually domesticating animals like sheep and cattle. By 4500 BC, this evolves into the Indus Valley civilization. And wow, standing right alongside ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, these folks were an absolute powerhouse of innovation. I mean, they developed complex metallurgy, and they're even believed to be the very first civilization to use wheeled transport. Picture ancient wheeled bullock carts and boats navigating the Indus River. But then, around 2000 BC, a major shift happens.
And that shift was driven by persistent droughts and changing climates. It literally forced the abandonment of those amazing urban centers, pushing the population to resettle into smaller villages. At the same time, driven by those exact same climate effects, waves of Indo-Aryan tribes migrated right into the region. So what we get is this fascinating transition from a highly urban, settled Indus Valley to the more tribal pastoral society of the early Vedic period. The local culture completely fused with the migrating Indo-Aryans. Actually, it was right here during this tribal era centered around the Indus Valley that the Vedas, the absolute oldest scriptures of Hinduism, were composed.
Moving on to Section 2, Conquerors at the Crossroads.
Now, you have to remember why this matters, because this territory linked Central Asia, the Indian subcontinent, and the Orient. It was basically a massive geographic magnet for empires. What followed was, well, it's kind of like a historical relay race of conquerors coming through the Khyber Pass. By the 6th century BC, those Vedic tribes were fighting amongst themselves, which left them vulnerable. King Darius I of the Achaemenid Empire totally seized the opportunity, marching his army in around 518 BC. Under the Persians, the Indus Valley saw a centralized bureaucratic administration, provinces called satrapies, for the very first time. Fast forward a bit to 328 BC, and Alexander the Great sweeps in, taking much of the former Persian Empire right up to the Indus River. After Alexander passes away, Chandragupta and his brilliant Brahmin counselor Chanakya capitalized on all the internal chaos, expanding the Mauryan Empire all the way from Bihar into what is today Pakistan and Afghanistan.
And this brilliantly illustrates that these conquests, they weren't just military campaigns. They were massive engines of cultural synthesis. A ton of Greeks actually settled in this part of the empire, creating the Indo-Greek kingdom. Their territories stretched way beyond the Hindu Kush into the Punjab region. Greek and Indian languages, traditions, and cultures deeply mixed, forging this rich, hybrid identity. The territory was then ruled by successive waves of Scythians or Sakas, the Indo-Parthians, and the Kushans.
Eventually, all this leads us to the Gupta Empire, which held power from roughly 320 to 600 AD, sharing a border with the Sassanid Empire right across the Indus River. This era was absolutely crucial. We're talking immense cultural developments that gave us some of the most important ancient Indian literary epics like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. But like so many massive empires before it, the Gupta Empire ultimately collapsed under the weight of lost territories, internal instability, and outside invasions from groups like the nomadic Indo-Hephthalites.
That brings us to Section 3, the spread of Islam.
This era marks a massive turning point that drastically shifted the region's religious and linguistic identity. In the 7th century, we see this huge expansion of the Arab caliphates. After conquering the Middle East and the Sassanid Empire, Arab forces reached the Indus Valley. Muhammad bin Qasim conquered most of the Indus region for the Umayyad Empire, and what followed was a gradual but incredibly profound conversion to Islam. As the new religion spread, it brought the Arabic and Persian languages right along with it, adding entirely new cultural layers. Subsequent empires, like the Ghaznavids and Ghurids, ruled for centuries, ensuring this new culture really took root and became dominant over time.
This Islamic influence fully solidified under the Delhi Sultanate. This was a massive empire based out of Delhi that ruled over the large rivers of the Indus Valley and pushed deep into India's territory. Now, just to keep our momentum going here, let's rapidly track the 5 ruling dynasties of this powerhouse. You have the Mamluk, the Khalji, the Tughlaq, the Sayyid, and finally the Lodi.
The absolutely crucial theme to take away from this period is fusion. Under the Delhi Sultanate, we see the emergence of the Hindi-Urdu language, a true synthesis born directly from the integration of Indian and Islamic civilizations. This period also hooked the Indian subcontinent into a much wider, growing world system. We're talking vast international networks spanning large parts of Afro-Eurasia, which, as you can imagine, profoundly impacted local culture and everyday society.
Which sets the stage for Section 4, the Mughal Golden Age.
So, after the region endured Mongol attacks and Timur's invasions, a monumental shift happened at the end of the 14th century. The First Battle of Panipat was fought between the invading forces of Babur and the Lodi kingdom. Now, this wasn't just another battle on the timeline, it was a real game changer. It marked the birth of the mighty Mughal Empire and officially kicked off the early modern period. Why? Because it featured some of the very first uses of gunpowder firearms and field artillery in the Indian subcontinent. Talk about a massive technological leap.
Mughal rule lasted nearly 2 centuries, and it truly was a golden age, bringing unprecedented economic development, prosperity, and peace. It was actually during this exact era that the religion of Sikhism originated in the Punjab province. The Mughals also spread Urdu and firmly established the region's artistic footprint. They built magnificent masjids, mausoleums, madrasas, and forts, achieving sheer excellence in painting and architecture. This incredibly rich period flourished right up until the empire began to decline in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, opening the door for other dynasties like the Durrani Empire, the Marathas, and the Sikh Empire to invade.
Moving into the falling action, here is Section 5, British Rule and Partition.
Let's quickly map out the rapid foundational steps of the modern era here. Following a series of conflicts with local rulers, Sikhs, and Afghans, most of this territory was occupied by the British Empire's East India Company. It's worth noting that Pakistan actually fell under British rule a bit later than other parts of South Asia. This period of rule lasted until August 14, 1947, when Pakistan gained its independence. But that independence meant dividing 2 provinces of British India, Punjab and Bengal, directly along religious lines.
And we have to acknowledge that the human cost of this transition was staggering. It was a deeply painful birth for the new nation-states. The partition sparked immediate violence and conflict between Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims. Millions of people migrated across these newly drawn borders, resulting in massive, chaotic population exchanges. And almost immediately, early disputes over Kashmir escalated into the very first war between newly independent Pakistan and India.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the Modern Republic.
This era is completely defined by intense political shifts. Tracking these events, we can clearly see the deep political instability of the late 20th century. In 1956, a new constitution led to Pakistan officially declaring itself an Islamic republic with a parliamentary democratic system. Then, another conflict with India broke out in 1965. By 1971, severe economic grievances and political disenfranchisement in East Pakistan escalated into a civil war. And following a defeat in yet another war with India, this led directly to the independence of Bangladesh. After that, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto created an Islamic socialist system. But, following a coup in 1977, he was executed and Islamic law was imposed. This turbulent cycle of political crises, new elections, and shifting systems has really continued to play out ever since. But perhaps the most defining characteristic of the modern era is its explosive demographic change. I want you to think back to the very beginning of this explainer. Remember those ancient wheeled bullock carts slowly moving through quiet early agricultural settlements? Well, when the nation achieved independence in 1947, 35 million people lived in this region. Fast forward to 1990, and that number surged to 100 million. Today, it stands at over 200 million people. It is a massive, absolutely explosive population boom. Which brings us to our final thought. We've traced this incredible path from a 70,000-year-old settlement through the passing empires of Greeks, Persians, and Mughals, all the way to a modern, rapidly growing republic. With over 200 million people today standing on this deeply layered historical tapestry, how will this historic crossroads of civilizations shape the future of South Asia? It's a fascinating question, and for sure, one I'll leave you to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always,